This is Comic Geek Speak, episode 1772, Comic Talk.
Laser beams, opinions like the seasons on everything you read in comics, movies, games, toys, artists, comic geek speak, comic geek speak, comic geek speak, comic geek speak, comic geek, uniting the world's mightiest heroes. This is
Go ahead there, Murd.
I'm Adam Murdo.
I'm Shane Kelly.
I'm Ian Levesine.
And I'm Chris Everly.
Comic geek
Sorry, I guess I must have missed the part where we agreed on an order there.
No worries. I love your Hitchcock-esque comic talk. Yeah. Well done.
I'm glad it was recognizable. Thank you.
Well done.
Good evening.
I was going with that, or the guy who played Ricky Schroeder's grandfather in Silver Spoons.
Oh God,
can't remember his name. He also was reading Scrooge in Scrooged.
Didn't he do the E.F. Hutton commercials? That guy?
Oh, he might have. That sounds right.
Oh man, we're off to a good start.
By the way, Shane, just because you set the stage for me, just quickly. The past few days, I've been on a bit of a nostalgic '80s binge in terms of a Mark Singer film festival.
Oh wow! Tell me, Beastmaster was in there.
Not only did I watch Beastmaster, which has not aged well.
No, it has.
But what I watched and still love is V. I watched the two movies.
Nice.
Some of the age effects aside, it still holds up really well.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I really wanted that new V to take off. I watched both. I think there was only 2 seasons of it.
Yeah.
I watched both, and at the very end, man, Mark Singer's in there with some government operation. I'm like, oh, here we go, and then it was canceled.
Aww.
But it's worth watching if you've never watched
I've never seen the new one.
I definitely it's really, I thought it was well done.
Yeah, that was 2009 until 2011.
It was worth watching for me.
Well,
Ian once again is clutch. Oh, man.
I've got the fastest 2 fingers in the West. Never did learn how to actually type, quote unquote, the correct way. I've just always been doing it the 2-finger way.
You know what? I'll tell you what. I was never taught how to type. I worked in an office back in the mid-'90s, and my boss had gotten an ergonomically correct, quote, keyboard, and it was raised for your wrist and split, so you never had to cross your hands. And he didn't like it, and I thought, well, I'll try it. Plugged it in, and I just used it for a year or two, and I learned where the keys were for which hand just because they were split right down the middle in a understandable way. So that's how I learned how to type.
That's cool.
It's probably not right, but I can if I'm doing my own thoughts or I repeatedly doing something, I can get pretty quick.
Yeah, I took a typing class. Well, not even a typing class. I took a computer class in junior high where they tried to teach us, and I'd say maybe half or less of the class actually got taught, and and the rest of us were just screwing around on the computers. Go figure. So how's everybody doing tonight?
Good so far. It's a little bit too warm today for my taste, but that's okay.
Yeah,
I love the warmth, Shani Poo. I love the warmth.
No. When it was 50 some degrees last night, and it jumped to 85 today. Too hot.
Merv, which room of the house are you in today?
I'm back in the barn, Ian.
Oh, nice.
Oh, nice.
Yep, that's why you haven't seen me so far. I'm at the cameraless computer in the office at the barn.
Ah, there you go. Well, how about we start off with some TV we've watched?
Yeah,
sure.
All right. We all got around to watching the new DC series that premiered on both DC Universe and the CW, Stargirl.
Yep.
Yes, indeed.
First question, did anybody watch it on the DC Universe app?
Yes, I did.
Okay, good. So did I. So I'll be able to touch on that because I know that that was a longer version than what aired on CW.
Oh, really? Because I watched the
it was.
CW version. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so did I. So did you guys get to see the deleted scene with Justin the janitor?
Was he?
Well,
there? No, I guess not.
He was in the hall, but I didn't see. There was no specific scene with him.
Yeah, no, I guess I didn't see that. What was
But it was 50. Our version on the DCU app was 53 minutes.
Interesting. Yeah, maybe that was a further deleted scene. That's a possibility.
Could be.
Or we're just completely forgetting, which is also possible.
No, I watched it 2 or 3 times. I don't remember
Oh, all right.
nothing more than just him in the hall.
Yeah.
No, that was
I guess we should have also said spoilers because we'll spoil it
Yeah.
in this first episode.
Spoilers for Stargirl, just in case you have not actually watched it. What was this scene in question, Murd?
I don't know the specifics, just that it gave us a close-up of the bearded, mysterious janitor Justin,
Okay.
which is a figure from Jeff Johns and Lee Motor's original Stars and Stripes series.
Nice.
So fans of the comic will know where that character is probably going.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. He was in the hall in the school, and he was just outside. I can't remember if it's when Courtney missed the bus or some other time outside the building.
Yeah, the version I watched didn't include Courtney missing the bus, I don't
Yeah,
think.
me neither.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the CW.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for the most part, I feel like they just really cut out padding scenes. Which is usually the case when it goes from streaming to TV. Like I'm sure that there were probably bits and pieces of like BoJack Horseman they had to cut out for Comedy Central just because it didn't fit in within the runtime. But that's what I assume is the case here with Stargirl for the most part.
Yeah.
Let's start off with our general impressions of the pilot, and we'll go from there. Shane, what'd you think?
I enjoyed it thoroughly. I won't say the pilot itself bowled me over in some ways, and I'll get into something specific a little bit later. But I thought everything looked great. Everybody did great. I actually love the casting. I hear some murmurs about this person they didn't like here or there, but I actually thought it was pretty well done. I think it's a nice, lighthearted, way more family-friendly show than anything else DC has on their app currently.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. For me, this is almost a send-up to, like, 80s Disney movies.
Yeah.
Light of the Navigator, anyone?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just in the way that it's executed. Like, I even get some, like, Back to the Future-esque vibes at times while it's coming out. And overall, I was thoroughly impressed with the way the pilot was shot. Definitely higher quality film than what they used for most of the other Arrowverse shows, as it were. I mean, technically, this is happening on another Earth, as they've established after Crisis on Infinite Earths. This is now the new Earth 2, so they don't have to worry about filming in Vancouver or what have you. This whole thing was filmed in Atlanta.
Right.
This blew me away in a lot of ways. Like, I enjoyed it way more than I was expecting it to, and it's so close to the comics, which happens when episodes have been written by Jeff Johns.
Yeah.
Murd, what'd you think?
Well, I was downright thrilled by certain elements and kind of disappointed in others. I'll agree with Shane about the quality of the costume design and the prop design and all of that, and with you, Ian, about the quality of the film. It's just got a higher budget on average than the CW network usually accords to new projects like this. And I don't think we can realistically expect this level of quality for the entire run of the season, especially a series, especially if it goes into multiple seasons. But we'll enjoy it while it lasts.
Yep.
We'll just say for the moment, we'll get into more detail in a second, that I was really excited about the DC-derived elements, and those that are more typical of the CW network. Those are the parts that disappointed me.
Yeah. I saw that one coming, and honestly, I kind of agree with that at some points myself. Even though I enjoyed it wholeheartedly, it is very teen drama-esque at times.
Yeah.
Chris?
Yeah, I'm going to echo Murd's sentiment. And one thing I'd like to do in later discussions, I want to pick Murd's brain a bit on the comic book history that some of this is based on, because I've never read Stars and Stripes.
My brain is at your fingertips.
Yeah, I look forward to that, Murd. Thank you. But I enjoyed it, but I have to be frank in that there's a formula to this type of show.
Yeah.
that maybe it's just because I'm older now. I'm so bored with it that, like, it's amazing how a state like Nebraska has the most multicultural high school class and staff you've ever seen. And
Well,
you know,
I think there's a reason for that.
Yes. Because it's all evil. That's why.
well, I look forward to hearing about that reason, Shane. But between that and the always forgettable pop music, and you know, you pretty much knew what was going to happen every step of the way.
Yeah.
It was fun, and part of this is me. Like, if you asked this question like 10 years ago, I probably would have been more excited about this. But, but I'll say what was thrilling was to see the JSA in their actual costumes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not modified for television or movie. They were in their real costumes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that was like when Wildcat's thrown out of the building, like, wow, that's actually like he's got the boxing tape. Like, that was really fun.
Yeah.
To see. So
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if Shane has gotten to do this because we both watch it on the DC Universe app, but I have also watched episode 2.
Oh, as did I.
Yeah, because it's airing a day before on the DC Universe app that it airs on CW. I believe it's on Tuesday nights, so it's airing as we record this right now on the CW.
VCR is taping it right now.
Excellent.
Afterward, at the end, towards the end of this discussion, I'm going to make one spoiler-free comment about the second episode.
Yes.
But I'll save that.
Yeah, then I will save my comments as well, outside of the fact that I will just make the statement that I actually enjoyed the second episode much more than I enjoyed the pilot.
I did too. Yeah, I did too.
Good to hear.
Yes.
that makes me want to watch the second episode then. All right.
I did very much so.
Absolutely, yeah. Is this the first time that we've seen Green Lantern, like Golden Age Green Lantern, live action? Because I'm trying to remember if he showed up on Smallville or not.
I don't think so.
Okay.
The JSA they showed in Smallville was Hawkman,
Dr.
Dr.
Fate,
Fate, the Sandman, sort of,
Stargirl.
and Stargirl. Yeah, I don't think it was beyond that, right?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think we saw all the other members in that
Painting, picture,
yes, the inevitable
mural.
group shot based on the cover of All Star
Right.
#2, like everyone
Right.
around the table.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because I mean, essentially, that is in some ways what we get here with Stargirl. It's just it's nice to see, you know, Alan Scott, Jay Garrick, like all Wildcat, the entire JSA, as opposed to just the ones they feel like using in the group shot.
I was surprised in a good way to see an actor like Owen Wilson in this show.
Luke Wilson.
Luke Wilson.
Yeah.
Luke Wilson. I'm sorry, Luke
Yeah.
Wilson.
He wasn't
I mixed
like
up the
Owen
brothers.
Wilson, no? Because they do have some
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, in fact, it's almost like they're brothers.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
the darndest thing.
Yeah, no, Luke Wilson, I've always been a fan of his work, and
I am too.
And seeing him here in this aspect was awesome, and just all the jokes about being a sidekick were probably one of my favorite bits about this.
Well,
Yeah.
I love in the beginning when Starman is dying and he says, you know, it's not going to be you. Like, you're not going to be the guy to.
Several times, in fact.
Yeah.
I like
I
that
suspect
part for
Joel
the
McHale extended his lines there. He probably just drew it out just to make it even more awkward for Stripesy, because that is what Joel McHale does.
Oh yeah,
and I like the teasing doing that. The first and second time, the third time, I thought it took it too far.
fair enough.
I got a little irritated at that. I'm like, that's a little smarmy considering you're dying.
But again, Joel McHale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm hoping we get a little bit more Joel McHale in flashbacks, because I love Joel McHale. He's one of my favorite comedic actors, and just seeing him in an action role would be a nice change of pace.
Now, let me
Yeah.
ask, since we're talking about that character, so, and I'm asking everybody, but especially Murd, what threw me, because, you know, I remember seeing Stargirl in some JSA stories that I was reading at the time. I did not read Stars and Stripe. So she has like the Jack Knight, the Knight legacy rod, right?
That comes from the end of Starman series as well.
Yeah.
Right. Because doesn't he bequeath it to her, sort of?
Yes.
Like, okay.
But I can't tell you what I want to tell you directly
Okay, that's fine. But
because you haven't seen what comes next.
Okay,
Yeah.
but the guy that's running around in the Star Spangled Kid outfit,
Yeah.
is that is that Starman only in this show, or was he called that in the comic too?
Starman, well, Ted Knight, the original Starman, wanted Sylvester Pemberton, the Star-Spangled Kid, to take on his legacy and become a new Starman, but the kid just couldn't bring himself to do it. So instead, he accepted some technology from Ted Knight. He had a force belt. For a little while, he had the cosmic rod when he was a member of the JSA in the 70s. Yeah. But he adapted it into his cosmic converter belt, and he called himself Skyman, and he was a leader of Infinity Inc. But then he died acting in that capacity. And it was actually when Courtney Whitmore, as the new Star-Spangled Kid, first appeared in Stars and Stripe in 1999, it was the belt that she found.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Her stepfather's effects. So yeah, the thing with the staff didn't come, as Shane said, that didn't come up in the comics until some years later when the Jack Knight Starman series.
That I remember. Yeah.
And that's the only time that staff appears is the beginning of the Starman James Robinson series.
Right.
Before that, it's Ted Knight's handheld one that's looks like a lightsaber hilt.
And,
Gotcha.
and combining those aspects, though, in a way, you are essentially combining the beginning of the Starman series with James Robinson with Stargirl, and
sort of,
and that worked for me in that aspect, because obviously, one Starman died, and then wound up being the beginning for a new Starman, and in this one, Star Spangled Kid / Starman dies, and eventually, winds up in the hands of Courtney.
Now, when Luke Wilson, I'm sorry, Shane, go ahead.
Well, which is a little disappointing to me. Just it works. Don't get me wrong; it works in the show. But I am disappointed in that, from my perspective, that disconnect of Ted Knight, his boy, somebody else, Stargirl. It skips over some things, but it makes sense for the show. That's just my own personal wanting.
Oh, and don't lose hope either, Shane, because there's a possibility that in later episodes or even later seasons they'll go back and fill in some earlier history of the JSA, and we'll learn that Ted Knight actually does still exist.
There is some, possibly.
Yeah. We get hints at a Knight legacy. That's just the way that I'm going to put it.
Interesting.
Yeah. And you'll know a lot more once you watch episode 2.
All right. Yeah. I'll be sure. Because you know what? I'm glad you guys have whetted my appetite, because I wasn't really bowled over by this. I wasn't planning on watching the second one, but based on your recommendation, I'm going to watch it.
The second one to me was much better. Yeah. And again, I enjoyed the first one, but the second one was much, much better.
Yeah.
Now, the Luke Wilson, when he's in the robot, now that's from Stars and Stripes, right?
Yes.
Okay. And in the comic, is that character was the sidekick to the Star Spangled Kid originally? Is that his?
Yep.
His okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Now in Stars and Stripes, though, he's a little bit older than he is in this show,
he
right?
Is, yeah.
Right, because he'd been around since the 40s, and thanks to having been tossed into the time stream by the Nebula Man, along with the other 7 soldiers of victory.
Oh, right.
He ended up returning to the present. Little aged physically, although he was born in like the 1920s somewhere.
Yeah, and here, what they say, 15 years ago was when the beginning happened. So
10
years ago.
Got it. Yeah, so they've definitely moved the events up significantly.
Now, a question about that time frame. So I remember reading somewhere, and maybe this is what it was when it was first being put out there that this was coming, and it changed. I thought I had read that for this show, taking place on Earth 2, whether we knew it was the new Earth 2 back then or not, I don't think we did.
Yeah.
But being on Earth 2, this Earth 2 is about 10 years behind the current Arrowverse timeline as far as the year that they're in, which to me would put this like in the early 2000s.
Interesting.
Maybe to mid, but I don't know that. And there's things in the show that make me think I imagined it. But then there's things like the music they use and some of the background things, like in the beginning when they're playing Bop by whatever that group was. Hanson.
Yeah.
That makes me think that, this could be 10 years earlier than what the DCU people like. It might be 2020 in this Earth 2, but in their history, they're 10 years behind where we are in 2020 on our prime Earth. You know what I mean? Like, I just remember reading that, and I'd like it if anybody could tell me that I'm completely wrong, or that, they remember hearing something about that. And maybe it's not happening, but that's just what I remember.
Were there cell phones? That's the question. I'm trying to think back to watching it.
because I had a like an Apple phone 10 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
But wait, were they showing cell phones in the show though?
Yeah,
Okay.
because
All right.
she's texting on him while she's riding with Pat in the car to school.
That's
Right.
right.
Okay. Yeah.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
I do notice that all the music we hear and the movies we see, like the drive-in scene, they're showing the Goonies.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
all,
and they say it's a classic.
Mhm.
You know, the one kid yells out, "Come on, this is a classic," and that's great. But I don't know. It just screams like it's just a few years ago, relatively speaking.
And those are the elements of the show, of the episode, that took me out of it a bit, in that there's like that WB CW formula, right? There's like,
Yeah, right.
okay, you've got the bullies, you've got the so-called like outcast kids who are far too good looking to never be outcasts in real life.
Yeah.
You've got the bizarre like island of multiculturalism in like the Midwest of the United States, in states where there's very few actual people to begin with.
Yeah.
And all that, I was like, God, they're still doing it like this? Like that kind of that took me out of it a little bit.
Yeah.
Because like they were doing that with Smallville like 15 years ago, and like they're still making shows
And
like
with
this.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer before that. Blue
Yeah.
Valley equals Smallville equals Sunnydale equals etc.
Oh, sure.
At least Buffy was in California though.
That's true.
So
Yeah. And you know, I mean, I think, you know, they have to do that at least a little bit, but I also agree. It should be white bread USA for the most part, and that's not really what we 100% get.
And I wondered if it's and I don't disagree because of what you're all saying, but I also wonder if this town specifically is like this because of all the evildom that seems to be there in the underlying that nobody knows. And I think even Amy Smart eventually will start to question some things.
Yeah.
Her character as Barbara will start to notice things.
Shane, once again, I said this before, you should be writing some of these television shows because you always come up with these. You always have these great discerning moments, and you know you've made a good point because I didn't think about this. When they're walking around, everybody's saying hi to them, and you think okay, it's the Midwest. They're running with that whole stereotype, but maybe it's not. Maybe there's something else going on there.
To me, it screamed Cobra Springfield. It just did. Everybody, you wouldn't know it. Everyone's nice. Everyone's, hey, how's it going? But secretly, they're all working for this evil conglomerate that most people outside of Hill Valley or Hill, whatever it is, don't know. Blue Valley don't know what's going on, especially outsiders.
First off, I would expect nothing less from you, Shane. So job well done. And second of all, I would agree with you that there's definitely something sinister in Blue Valley, and I think we're going to wind up finding that out.
Well, and you get hints of that, like when Courtney's walking into the school and the girls cheerleaders come right up to her and start talking, and they're like, "Oh, I have your cell phone. Don't worry about it." Well, how'd you get that? Well, it's okay.
That's another scene that I don't think Chris and I saw.
Oh, okay.
Either, yeah.
So there's a part when Courtney first gets into the school. She's walking down the hall, and there's two girls that walk right up, and they're trying to talk Courtney into joining the cheerleading squad, and they start out with like, well, hey, do you want to hang out? And she goes, well, sure. And she's like, Courtney says, well, all right. Well, I'm sorry. The one girl says, well, I'll text you. And Courtney says, okay, my number. She goes, don't worry about that. I already have it. Well, she just walked into school. How do you have it? She goes, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
That's a little creepy. And even Courtney's face kind of looks like, okay, that's weird.
Even if she was blowing her off, it still comes off as very weird.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, well, this ties into Chris's complaints about the WBCW formula, too. I mean, this is a convention of a lot of CW shows, a small-town high school where, in the group of evil, it's... And just, yeah, well, he mentioned the stereotypical jock bullies, too, and I was, as a sidebar, I was really upset to see that one of them was Henry King Jr., Brainwave Jr., who was one of my favorite characters from Roy Thomas's Infinity Inc. back in the 80s. And God bless Roy, nobody wants to give his Infinity Inc. characters an even break, it seems. And everybody wants to write Brainwave Jr. as a villain. I really liked his arc in that he was the son of a Golden Age villain who was trying to make it in, a later decade as a hero.
Well,
and I'm kind of hoping that there can be some evolution for the
Yeah, there might be still murder.
I'm hoping there is.
Justice Society members in Blue Valley.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, that's something I was going to pick your brain about, Adam, because I didn't know if any of these ancillary kids had backgrounds like that, because I haven't read that yet. But I'm hoping, since you said that, I'm hoping that there is something like that for them.
Oh yeah, there's tons of DC notables hanging around this version of Blue Valley.
Yeah.
It just remains to be seen what form they're ultimately going to take.
Well, I think Murd, we might have. At least I'm certainly hoping this way that perhaps we'll have something similar to a. Just to bring up Avatar: The Last Airbender, because it's been on my mind lately, like a Zuko turn with him, where he starts off as a villain and then eventually makes his way to being closer to the hero's side and perhaps even teaming up with the heroes in the end. And that, I think that would actually make a lot of sense for a character like that.
And I also thought they were trying to pique our interest with the taciturn loner guy at the table who got up and walked away when she sat down to lunch. The more you guys talk, again, you definitely have the advantage. You saw the DC one, which clearly has a little bit more of things fleshed out, but. Yeah. I'm really looking forward to watching the second episode. Before we started this recording, I wasn't going to watch it at all. So,
well, I'm
we gotta hang in there, if only because there are a couple of episodes later on in the series which are written by a co-executive producer, James Robinson.
Nice.
And I can't wait. I can't wait for that.
I am very much looking. I honestly didn't even. Thank you for bringing that up, Merc, because I didn't realize he was co-executive producer, and that makes the the ties to the Starman series even greater for me. So that's great.
Yeah, and some of that I'm hoping one of those, and I didn't read ahead of any of that kind of stuff or summaries or anything that's out there.
Yeah,
but my hope is that one of them might end up be a quote times past story from Pat that would clue you into some of what I'm hoping is in there.
Seems very possible.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Shane, you missed your calling, man.
That just makes so much sense.
It does, yeah. And for that matter, if we get some Starman villains in this, I mean, obviously, if we get the Shade in one way or the other, I would be so happy. Because he
and it doesn't even have to be Shade where he's kind of ambiguous. It can be evil Shade. I just want to see him.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Shade showed up in, I think, in the Arrowverse as well, if I remember correctly, at least in a episode. I forget whether it was Arrow or Flash, but sometime in the history of the show, I have vague recollections of the Shade showing up at least once.
Oh, wow.
It was not a great version of him. Like it was basically, a villain of the week. But if I'm remembering correctly, he's shown up at least once.
What do we think of the main actress and her portrayal of Courtney?
Perfect.
Yes.
My sentiments
exactly. She looks the part. And Jeff Johns was elated to have found her. Apparently, he sifted through like hundreds of different actresses, but when he saw Breck Bassinger, he knew immediately that he had found the woman who was going to be, the avatar for the character based on his late sister.
And I love that she also is well versed in gymnastics.
Yes. Oh my God! And those were my favorite scenes. Her, using the cosmic rod as a balance beam and all that, and using it to do her whole gymnastics routine. That was beautifully executed and really drove home the makings of the character for me.
Yeah. Now here's one of my little quibbles about the first episode, and I hope a lot of people like it that I've read. I'm not sure that I do. I love the design of the cosmic staff.
Yes.
And I am not one to go buy many prop replicas because they are too damn expensive. But come hell or high water, if they produce a cosmic staff replica, I'm going to order that thing if I have to mortgage my left kidney. Somehow that's coming in. That being said, I love the effect. I'm not sure I like that it has its own self-intelligence, this AI to it.
Yes.
I don't mind that it's temperamental and may or may not work for certain people, but I don't like that it's really, really talking to her and she understands it like Ray understands BB-8.
It's kind of like what they did with Doctor Strange's cape.
Yes.
Yes. They want to give a character something to talk to.
Yeah. This is, I completely agree with you, Shane. In addition, gripe number one for me was the stuff that Chris has already expounded about the CW absurdity and the unrealistic depictions of middle American high school life. Gripe number B, though, was just what you're pointing out here. That I am really not on board with the staff being semi-sentient. It's, for one thing, it's just kind of goofy on its face. For another, as Chris pointed out, it's been done fairly recently with Doctor Strange's Cloak of Levitation. Yeah. A main character in an action movie having equipment with a mind of its own. And point 3, though, I see it as detracting a little bit from Courtney's character here, because it's, with its own sentience, it's kind of recruiting her and prodding her into a life of adventure, just choosing her like Excalibur or like Harry Potter's wand. The cosmic rod does not choose the Starman. Okay, it's an inanimate object.
Right.
The legacy is not passed on by the staff itself. It's by its wielder. In the DC universe proper, that was Jack Knight. But the way it worked with Courtney in the comics was she wasn't selected by the Cosmic Converter Belt to be the new Star-Spangled Kid or Stargirl. She found it amongst Pat Dugan's things, and she gets this impish little idea that she's going to become a superhero, the new kid, just to annoy her stepfather, with whom she was not getting along. And that was her initial motivation for crime fighting. And eventually she grew and learned better reasons, better motivations for living the life she was living and for gradually assuming the Knight family legacy. But here she's just kind of... It's not her making this decision as much as the staff is making it for her.
Yeah.
And while it does... It makes her more sympathetic and likable in that she's not just doing this to be a jerk to her stepfather. She's doing this because this magic weapon is telling her that she should. But on the other hand, it also it takes a little bit of her agency away, in that it's not her making this decision on her own so much as she's being dragged into this grand legacy that she immediately assumes she's part of.
And I would be okay with it even if it was the kind of thing where it just works for her because of... If it's passed on from somebody to Starman of this show and the staff gets coded to his DNA and for some reason he does end up being some kind of relative of hers, whether it's father or whatever, and it works for her solely because she does have a similar DNA, I'm okay with that explanation. I don't like what you're saying too, Adam. I don't like the path of it prodding her along.
I am of the camp that I actually don't want her to be Starman's daughter.
Yep.
I am too.
Yeah. And I think that is a swerve because that's way too easy. And clearly there's going to be some sort of other explanation for this, whether it's one of the villains or whether it's Our Man or whether it's, someone else that winds up getting introduced as time goes on, or perhaps another member of the JSA. I just know that it's way too easy for her to put 2 and 2 together like that in the first episode and have it actually be true.
And that was my question.
Absolutely.
So in the comic, she's not related to anybody like that, right?
Nope,
Okay.
not in any way.
No.
That's what I thought. Well, I think Ian's right. I mean, it's too obvious, especially in the first episode.
Oh, yeah.
But that doesn't mean that they're not going to do it that way either, which is what my hesitation is with it.
Yeah.
The other question I had was, we're to assume all the JSA are dead, correct?
Well...
Or
yes.
are they not?
I think you leave this episode with that feeling, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
But watch episode 2. That's all.
Gotcha.
That's all.
And it's not like everyone shows up and whoa, there we are. The JS. No, it's not like that. But there is a conversation about what happens.
Because the way they showed that battle, and I have to admit, I kind of thought they were beaten too easily, by the way. But
I do too.
Yeah. I don't think the JSA would have actually lost that kind of battle, but that's just
especially against those villains, the way they were portrayed.
Yeah. And with the green flame, that Green Lantern was there for that battle.
Yeah. So that aside, though, just a geek quibble, but I agree with you, Shane, because it didn't look necessarily like that Wildcat actually died, for example.
Or if he did, he's got 9 lives.
Yeah, so I look for again another incentive now to watch the second episode.
Well, this series is definitely going to go into Legacy. Let's put it that way.
Right.
So even though the JSA quote unquote passed, or at least some of them did, we're definitely going to see their next generations in the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hope that's not a spoiler for all the pictures and things that are out there. I'm not sure, and again, I'll give it a full chance because I'm going to watch the show no matter what.
Oh yeah,
I'm not sure how much I like an all teenage kind of JSA, like a junior JSA coming out of this.
Yeah,
but
like an
I
Infinity
think that's where we're going.
In Infinity Inc. Exactly.
And if they call it that, I'm fine. But if they call it like the JSA again, I don't buy that.
Well, I'm afraid that's probably what they're going to end up doing. But in effect, it's going to be Infinity Inc.
Yeah,
that's what I'm hoping.
Maybe they'll call them Young Justice. I'm sorry, that's taken.
Yes.
Yeah.
A few universes over.
Exactly. Yeah. And I I mean, I look forward to the villains in this as well, because I mean, some of the villains they teased in that opening, 10 years ago, the fact that Solomon Grundy is there, that that Brainwave is there, that we're going to get some old school villainy going on in this series, and I'm
Who was the female villain who was engaged in hand-to-hand combat?
That was the Golden Age Huntress, also called the Tigress.
Okay.
And I think we're supposed to understand that she has gone on to become the gym teacher at Blue Valley High, and she's the one who pointed Courtney over to the losers table.
Correct.
Which, as you said, Chris, is ridiculous. I definitely agree. But fun fact, though, have any of you guys seen Duncanville on Fox?
No.
I've seen a couple episodes, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's a new animated series from Amy Poehler and others, and the actress who plays Paula Brooks there, the Tigress, her name is Joy Osmansky, and she does the voice of the little adopted Chinese girl on Duncanville. Jean.
Oh, that's awesome!
Wow.
Yeah, that one of the few voices on that show that's not Amy Poehler.
Now, quick question. So, the villains we saw were Solomon Grundy, Brainwave, Tigress, and who else was there?
The Wizard, the Icicle. Sportsmaster.
Yes.
Sportsmaster. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, and Icicle, I really hope we get Icicle Jr., because that's one of those characters that John's fleshed out in his JSA run that I was a huge fan of.
Yeah, that sure was.
Yep. Yeah.
Jen, I want to thank you because your elaboration has really piqued my interest now. So
I'm happy to hear it.
And there's a lot of good and promising things in this. I mean, as much as as I say the things I didn't like, the little quibbles, and some of that is just us who have been longtime fans and some knowledge we have.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to pick it apart. That's not my intent. It's just things that made me go, I don't know about that. But overall, the show's great. I love it. I love that it's family friendly. I love that it's family friendly on the DC app, because as much as I like the other shows that are on there, I don't always agree with their choice in scripting and how dark they are.
Yeah, no, that's true, and this is the opposite of that, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the most light thing ever. I mean, I brought up when we first started talking about it that it reminds me of 80s Disney, and I mean, yes, with the fact that the cosmic rod is basically the magic carpet from Aladdin, that adds to it, but at the same time, just even like the music and the atmosphere and all that, just really, I don't know, it just fills me with joy as opposed to darkness like some of the other shows, and I'm 100% for that, and it gives me hope for the series in that aspect.
Well, and the fact that James Robinson is involved, which I didn't know.
Oh, yes.
That's really exciting.
Yeah.
And I love things like, I do like Titans, but I don't always agree. They seem out of character for me when I watch it.
Yeah.
It's a well done show, and I like what they do, but the characters themselves don't always seem to be written for how they should be portrayed.
Yeah. Speaking of which, just a quick segue. I did watch the first 6 episodes of Doom Patrol after watching Stargirl.
Oh, really?
Okay.
And holy crap, is that a good series?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep. And now the way they're written and the things that happen there, I kind of expect that out of Doom Patrol.
Yes, 100% the case. Yeah, but I mean, everything about it, like from the cast to the way it's shot to the insanity of it all. We discussed a couple episodes. I mentioned that I watched Happy, and Murd and I both agreed it's one of the most Grant Morrison things you could ever Grant Morrison. But Doom Patrol. It is.
Yeah, they do a good job.
Oh my God, it is just as weird as anything that Morrison's Doom Patrol put out. And my favorite part, and my girlfriend's favorite part, because now it's her favorite character. They actually do animal, vegetable, mineral man.
Vegetable man.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, they
Talk
do.
about a character I never thought I'd see adapted to live action.
Yep, and they went ahead and did it. It's sort of played for laughs as a sort of like a once it happens, you wind up seeing him like in a couple of random scenes here or there, like robbing a liquor store and having the dinosaur head try to bite the head of the human off and stuff like that, and he winds up showing up after that. But just the fact that they even went that far just makes me beyond happy. And another show that deals with legacy, because I will not spoil the way they pull it off. but there is a quote-unquote Golden Age Doom Patrol.
Oh, wow.
Which they wind up bringing in. Or Silver Age, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
That plays heavily into what is, as of this point, my favorite episode of the series. It's superb. The fact that they have Timothy Dalton involved with this production in any way, says something, and that he's playing the chief.
He's brilliant. I love him in it.
He's so good. Brendan Fraser as Robot Man, Matt Bomer as Negative Man. Like the cast is superb, and it's going to be available on HBO Max.
At the end of this month.
At the end of this month, yeah.
Or is it right away tomorrow?
I think season 1 might be available.
The first season might be tomorrow. Yeah.
Yes. Season 2 is premiering sometime in June. I think June 26th, if I remember correctly, but it's going to be simultaneous with HBO Max and DC Universe. It's so freaking, and even better, Alan Tudyk is Mr. Nobody.
Oh my God, he's brilliant.
Yeah,
that man, his range is just absurd to me.
Yes.
How much range he has in his characters.
Absolutely. Yeah, we brought up again last comic talk when Murr was talking about Harley Quinn, like how many different voices he voices in that, and just what he's able to pull off in his villainous roles is just as good as he pulls off as a hero. So it's damn good. I hope more people can check it out now that it's going to be on the HBO Max thing. But the reason I bring it up though is, again, filming styles. You can tell they're putting way more money into things that are quote-unquote DC Universe than they are CW. And it shows in special effects. And the special effects they use for Stripe, it's
fantastic.
Beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. You only get a quick shot of it in the pilot. But they're definitely doing a wonderful combination of model work and CGI, and that's the way you go with something like Stripe.
Yeah. Now something else that I just wonder, even in the first episode, you have the cosmic staff leading Courtney into the middle of a courtyard in what looks like it's in front of City Hall or something to practice. Nobody notices her walking around with this thing. Nobody sees it. I can see people noticing it flying over, going, "Oh, what's that bright thing going through the sky?" But walking through the town to get there, really, nobody saw it.
All the more reason we know they're evil.
Shane.
That part seemed a little weird.
Yeah, Disney.
Yeah.
Even though it's not Disney, it's Disney.
Yeah. So, all right. There's one thing in the second episode. Towards the end of it, there's a conversation between Pat and Courtney, and there's one line that Pat says that absolutely made me. I sat here yesterday and I watched it, and I clenched my fists and shook them in the air and went, "Oh my God, yes!"
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And it saved anything for me that no matter what this show produces, this one line is something I never thought I'd hear and possibly see in a live action show. And if you know me, you'll know exactly what it is as soon as you hear it.
The series has potential. Let's just put it that way. The series has potential, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing where that potential leads.
Yep. Plenty of time for it to grow into that potential, and I think we'll all be there watching.
Yep.
You know what? I especially appreciate your gentlemen's comments, because with the way my time is, I really have to be choosy about the television that I watch.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. It's not like, when I was 25, I could just spend a lot of time watching television. So, and that's not a put down. It's just life changes. I'm not trying to watch television. Mm-hmm. But if the second episode is that strong, I'm going to check it out as soon as possible.
Yeah.
I think it is.
It is. Yeah, it 100% is. And give it a shot. I mean, to me, the best CW Hourverse show is still, strangely enough, it's like a tie between The Flash and Legends of Tomorrow. And I wouldn't quite say it's on their level yet. But I think that if this season goes the way that I'm hoping it will, it's going to be up there in my top 3 very, very easily.
All right. And remember, those series had some rough spots in their first seasons, too.
Oh, sure.
Very true.
Sure, absolutely.
Very true, yeah.
I also agree with you, Ian. Flash and Legends are pretty high up there. Flash is my favorite and has been.
Yeah.
My problem with Legends, and it's just the nature of the beast with the money available, I expected them, and I'm behind on this season. I'm caught up on just about everything else except Legends.
Yeah.
to have that many characters with that many powers and suits, you can't have them all being their superhero personas all the time.
Yeah.
Not on that kind of budget. And that's my only disappointment with that show. Otherwise, as just a team up show, it's great. And they have well-written stories. They're fun. They're irreverent. They don't take themselves too seriously.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of fun to watch.
Well,
So that minor little quibble is nothing compared to how much I do like that show.
Now, what about because Murd has encouraged me to watch it. I'm going to try to do this summer. What about Black Lightning?
Black Lightning, I am actually going to be starting sometime in the next week or two.
I am behind on that one too. I do have to start catching up on that.
I've only ever watched the pilot, so and I did enjoy the pilot. I'm sorry, other than the Crisis on Infinite Earths tie-in, I did watch that as well out of order. But I'm going to be starting from square one on that one and sitting down and watching it because
Ian will symbolically clasp forearms and commence this journey together.
Yep.
I'm going to restart it. I watched season 1, but I'm going to start over because I didn't watch season 2 and only the Crisis stuff on season 3.
And Shane, you need to let me know when you're caught up on Legends of Tomorrow because we just reviewed Galaxy Quest on this episode, and there is an episode that's airing this week where the Legends are essentially stuck in television. And there is at least a couple of scenes from what I've seen from the from the stills that take place on a Star Trek deck.
Oh, jeez! Wow!
With everyone in uniform, some people with Vulcan ears. It looks like it's going all in on that. It's the oh god, what's that John Ritter movie that came out?
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, it looks very Stay Tuned-esque this episode. So I'm looking forward to that.
Now, did you see in the credits of the show, in the first episode, Henry Thomas, special guest?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, who was he? I was going to ask you that.
Dr. Midnight.
He was Dr. Midnight?
Yep. I looked it up today because it was driving me nuts. I was trying to figure it out, watching it a couple times.
I thought was he the guy running the gym? I was like, who's Henry Thomas in this?
Nope.
Okay.
That's who it was, Dr. Midnight.
Huh. Okay, go figure.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, does that mean we're going to get more of him, or
I
did
would think so.
Yeah.
I would think so.
I would hope so.
Or Henry Thomas, just a huge comic fan, just wanted to have a scene. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Could be.
It's possible. Yeah.
Well, all right. I'm looking at Wikipedia, and I'm looking at the titles of upcoming episodes. I don't know if these are going to constitute spoilers, but you already know the title of episode 2 is Stripe.
Yes.
That's straightforward enough.
Mm-hmm.
But episode 3 is called Icicle.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Episode 4 is called Wildcat. That one's written by James Robinson.
Okay.
Episode 5 is called Our Man and Dr. Midnight.
Okay.
Wow. Okay. Exciting.
All right, then. Okay. Well, I brought up 80s movies enough already. Having Elliot involved is certainly adding to that pedigree.
And I'm thinking 18. I'm also thinking Cloak and Dagger when it comes to Henry Thomas as a kid.
Yep. Cloak and Dagger. And then wasn't he in Fire in the Sky with D.B. Sweeney? Maybe he wasn't. I can't quite remember that.
Man. I'm in no way familiar with his work outside of ET, so I can't really comment on that.
Well, you got to see Cloak and Dagger.
Cloak and Dagger. Oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's a fun 80s film.
Yeah.
Oh, that is
guys,
so
I got to depart in 15. You mind if I shout out a couple books I've read?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Go right ahead.
Just so we could transition. I appreciate it. I mentioned this in a previous episode. I did read Second Coming from Ahoy Comics, written by Mark Russell, art by Richard Pace and Leonard Kirk.
Mm-hmm.
This book, of course, is very controversial because the premise is that Jesus returns to Earth and God, his father, is upset with sort of Jesus' whole perspective, and he teams him up with a Earth's most powerful superhero, in a sense, to sort of make Jesus a man, in a sense. And of course, it's very controversial. I think it was dumped from one publisher to another.
Mm-hmm, from DC.
That's right. Thank you, Murph, from DC. And I read it a couple weeks ago. I want to just, as a shout out, I really enjoyed it thoroughly. Now, granted, I'm a very irreverent person, and I don't really put a lot of stock in many institutions. So I wasn't bothered by the approach to this book. I can see why some people, especially if someone is of a particular faith and that they interpret the Bible a particular way and they interpret Christ a particular way, they're going to be deeply offended by this and see it as blasphemous. But that's why we have something called the First Amendment. It's also why you just don't have to read it. So for other people, this is a delight. It's really funny. Make some interesting comments. Nothing like revelatory, but interesting comments on how we view Christ, his place in our culture, and how we viewed the devil and God. And I don't think this is gonna set comics on their heads or anything. But it's funny. It's touching. It's irreverent, and I really dug it. So, if you're a particular type of hardcore, fundamental right-wing evangelical, you're not going to like this book. But I found that people like that tend not to like a whole lot of different things. That's just me. And even if you're someone of faith and religion, you may still get something out of this. It was fun. I enjoyed it quite a bit. So that's second comment. The book I want to mention, and this is kind of a follow-up. I finished, Ian, House of X, the collection of the Power of X, House of X series.
Nice.
We spoke last time. I was in the middle of it.
Yep.
And Shane, I think, was in the middle of it as well.
Yep, I finished it as well.
Yeah, and the first thing I'll say is, having finished it, I really hope, like they did with the Avengers, they let Hickman tell the full story here.
Yes.
Because if this goes in the hands of other writers, it's not going to be as good.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is clearly his vision. Just like what he did. Think about the time they gave him on the Incursion, Avengers, Secret War. That went on for quite some time.
Oh, definitely.
And I hope they do the same thing here because, again, this is the most exciting X-Men stuff I've read in years.
Chris, there's literally a crossover coming this summer, helmed by Hickman, titled X of Swords.
Oh. Yeah.
That's all you need to know.
And Shane and I were referencing this a bit, and I got the full effect once I finished it. You leave this, at least for me as a reader and someone who loves the history and the characters, you leave the story, at least from my perspective, uncomfortable.
Yeah.
With some of the X-Men's agenda. You understand. I don't want to spoil too much. You understand why they're doing what they're doing,
and in some ways, thankful they're finally doing it.
Yes. But because and obviously they make a lot of references to the fact that millions of mutants were murdered on Genosha, and obviously that's going to affect everything they do going forward. But at the same time, all I'll say is there's issues here with mortality that are very uncomfortable.
Oh my God! Absolutely. Yeah.
And I'm sure that's Hickman's intention. I left this really, captivated, and I can't wait to read more. But I was also wow, okay. So when you think about what these mutants have endured throughout the whole history of these characters and all the death and misery and suffering, and you're okay, well, I can kind of see why they're going where they're going and who they're allying. I mean, for Pete's sake, Apocalypse. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, so this is some of the most exciting Marvel stuff, from this company. That I've read in a while. They're really pushing the envelope here, and I really hope again they let Hickman, because I'm sure he has a vision. They let him tell his full story.
Absolutely, yeah. And now that you've finished it, you now know, because you asked on the episode, where Hope is. Now you know where she is, as you know many other characters where they are. So that's. I'm looking forward to catching up on the Hickman X-Men book now that it's past the miniseries and what have you, just to see how he's building this story.
Yeah, because I haven't read any of those yet, and I have to do that as well. And again, as you mentioned our last discussion, Professor Xavier, kind of creepy.
Oh yeah,
kind of creepy. Yeah, go ahead.
In some ways, I wonder if he's not compromising. That's not what I mean, but he's taking such a different stance this time around than he ever has before in how to make his vision and his people be safe.
Yeah, and what the role of Moira, which you've mentioned, we talked about before, which is the narrative thread through the whole story, is just a fantastic way to totally not change anything, but just look at this character who we've known since the 70s from a totally different perspective. But that closing page where they show, Xavier and Magneto side by side, and then off in the shadows, Apocalypse. It's this is not going to end well.
Oh my God.
There's no way in Earth.
And Sinister,
this is gonna
for
end
that
well.
matter. Sinister,
And
for that
Sinister,
matter.
yeah.
Yeah. Including two of the most notorious villainous characters in the X-Men's history. Not quite side by side, but also like involved in one way or the other with the happenings of this. Says a lot.
And I really liked how they included Nightcrawler in sort of their governing council, because he's always been one of the real. He always had this strong conscience. They even mentioned he's a man of faith.
Yep.
At one point, and I'm interested to see where they take his character through all this, because they've always established like Kurt Wagner as a man of God, essentially, and Xavier and Magneto, they're now playing God.
Yeah.
In ways that you're like, I don't know about this. I mean, if you put yourself in the story, like if you're the human governments, like you have to do whatever you can to like basically kill all of them, because where this is going is, and there's a great scene where I think Emma gets the Russian ambassador to change her view on something, and Xavier, or maybe it's Jean, one of them, like actually basically supports what she's done. And when you think about it, in the old stories, like it was the anathema was you don't mess with anybody's mind, right? I remember Dark Phoenix, Jean at one point makes Kitty's parents accept the X-Men, and Charles and Storm and Scott are horrified by it. Now that's just par for the course here.
Yeah.
So, and again, you understand why they're doing it, because they're concerned about their survival as a species. But he's getting into really complex questions of morality and science and mortality. This is great stuff.
There's a one shot as well that came out somewhat recently called Giant Size X-Men: Jean Grey and Emma Frost, which I'm looking forward to reading as well. That goes into their relationship, not only on the team, but how they can possibly coexist considering their history.
Scott.
Yeah.
I ordered that one. I haven't received it yet. But,
Excellent.
Well, and after reading those two series, I've read X-Men 1, Marauders 1, and I'm in the middle of Excalibur 1, and they're all fantastic so far too.
Great. That gives me hope.
I'm sorry, go ahead. The other thing I want to quickly shout out before I have to depart, I got in the mail a few weeks ago the Immortal Hulk Volume 6. I'm reading the book in trade. Wow. So at this point, now we're into like the 30s in terms of issue numbers. That's where I'm reading. And what Al Ewing is doing with the Hulk, and how he's making the Hulk story a commentary now on basically American society, our economy, our political culture. It's really fascinating. And he's definitely sort of like drawing battle lines here in what he's writing. It's riveting stuff. Is anybody reading Immortal Hulk or no?
I mean, I'm still reading it. I'm a little bit behind, but I'm very much still involved with the trades and all that jazz. And I know Murd has been as well.
Yep, I'm collecting trades also. I'm only as far as volume 4 though.
Okay, so I don't want to spoil anything, go into too much detail, but this is another book where it's just. It goes to the strength of the fundamental Marvel concepts when they're in the hands of a certain writer, and when editorial lets them go with their vision, you get really innovative, exciting stuff here. It reminds me of when Slott did Silver Surfer. Like that was one of the most exciting, innovative things Marvel had done, or when Tom King did Vision. Like I love when the big companies they let creators kind of take a character and really apply a vision to it. No pun intended. But it's the X-Men and Immortal Hulk, man. Wow. Just great stuff.
Yep.
So
100%.
Brothers, I have to depart.
All righty.
Okay.
Good talking with you, sir, and we'll catch you next week.
My friends, as always, this is a weekly tonic for the spirit, especially in these times. So I bid you all a fond farewell and a good night, gentlemen. Take care.
You too. Good night.
Away Wale, my friend.
Very well. Auf Wiedersehen.
Via con Rios. Okie dokie. And as we move on to just the three of us, Murd, what you been up to lately?
Well, Well, it's technically summer now, and so we spent kind of a surreal Memorial Day weekend down in Stone Harbor doing as much of our usual Memorial Day stuff as we could get away with, given the current conditions. And in between it, I did find time to read some comics. Mostly, though, I was rereading issues of a certain 90s comic series for the purposes of an upcoming Spotlight episode. Shadow.
Nice.
I wonder what that could be.
The answer will shock you.
Excellent. Well, I very much look forward to that. Is that all you got to read, or you managed to catch up on anything else?
Well, just stuff from a long time ago. I mean, I did. I thought if we had time to fill and we were going to talk about recent reads, I have read the first 2 issues of Jeff Johns and Ethan Van Sciver's Green Lantern Rebirth.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Those bubbled their way to the top of my pile. And, yeah, I mean, this is kind of a Jeff Johns heavy episode when you think about it, between the premiere of DC's Stargirl and this.
Sure.
It's enjoyable so far. I mean, it's only the first 2 issues. I think I have a basic understanding of where the story ends up, since it's a decade and a half old by now. Ethan Van Sciver's art is gorgeously grotesque as always, and John's story, well, I don't have a problem with the story he's telling or how he's telling it. It's skillfully done. It's just more kind of the underlying agenda of it all, which is basically he's. This, in historical hindsight, this is where Jeff Johns starts to have a little too much power at DC. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Like he begins to give it he had one big success as far as massive character revisionism with Hawkman. And see that episode of CGS presided over by Peter Rios that Chris always plugs as far as the masterful job that Peter did in talking about the history of Hawkman and how Johns managed to pare it all down and make it intelligible again. Here, with the Green Lantern Rebirth thing, he's basically just using the magic of the Spectre to toss out every development in Green Lantern, his supporting cast, and his world that Johns doesn't think should be a part of Green Lantern's world anymore going forward, and institutes a new version, like fresh and clean and ready for new adventures, of Hal Jordan back amongst the living. And he's trying to bring Hal Jordan back to basics. The problem is I don't necessarily agree with Johns' idea of what the basics are for Hal Jordan. And so this is... I just kind of felt he was getting a little bit too big for his britches as far as his role in revisionism of DC characters.
Right.
And this is kind of where it begins. And, yeah.
I mean, you know as well as anyone that I'm a huge Kyle Rayner guy, and I was just very disappointed at the time that they decided that Kyle wasn't good enough, and that was essentially the case with this. That because Jeff Johns grew up with Hal Jordan, and as you said, he had power in the company at the time, he decided that Hal had to come back, and I thought they did a very excellent job of exiting Hal out back in the day. The whole Emerald Twilight thing was a little bit of a mess, even if it was a well-known story at the time. Looking back on it, however, it's the Spectre era of Hal Jordan that I look back very fondly, and what he pulled off in Final Night, sacrificing himself to restart the sun. That was some really poignant stuff, and I felt like all of that sort of just went null and void with Rebirth. I mean, sure, we did get the whole Black Lantern saga, and we got the truth behind the Yellow Impurity and all that jazz because of the series, but as it was coming out, I definitely felt a little bit jilted. Like I felt like they were sort of just like poo-pooing the comics that I read in favor of the originals.
Right, of a vanished Silver Age ideal.
Yes.
And yes, I understand your feelings about Kyle too, but just look at it this way: at least they didn't kill him.
Oh my God! And boy, oh boy, did they try. Both him and Dick Grayson have had as many close calls over the years as anyone in the DC universe. I more so than Superman, more so than Batman. Like they have come this close to death so many dang times. It's irritating.
Yeah, well, it's because at DC they know that we know that Superman and Batman are not really expendable.
Sure.
Whereas legacy figures like Kyle and even Dick certainly are, as long as there are other characters around who can step in and be the new Robin.
Yep.
Why not? But so I guess that's why they kept dangling us from the end of that string for so many years, because they felt they had some credibility as far as threatening us with those deaths.
Sure. Yeah. Shane, who's your favorite Green Lantern?
Traditionally I'd say Hal, because that's what I grew up with in Super Friends cartoons and early readings. I did grow fond of Kyle and what he did when they brought him into the JLA.
Yeah.
And I loved that story arc. So I was a little bit bitter when they brought Hal back in the day. But I do think Hal being back worked well as time went on. But I do remember thinking, well, what about Kyle? In the same way that when they brought Barry Allen back more recently, I was like, well, what about Wally? All that stuff.
My God.
Those are the Kyle and Wally with oh gosh, who was the other guy back in the JLA? Maybe Elongated Man. There was some kind of multi-part story, and I think Green Lantern comic with Kyle and
Connor Hawk.
Yeah,
and Connor Hawk.
Yes.
Yep, 3 of a kind, I think they called it.
3 of a kind. You're absolutely correct.
Yep.
I enjoyed those kinds of arcs, those characters together at that time. I'm glad that they never got rid of Kyle completely, but I would like to see him a little bit more in the forefront now.
Yeah, there was another crossover too that I really enjoyed with Connor Hawk involved that crossed over into the Batman comics also. It was Brotherhood of the Fist.
Right.
Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah, that was a 5-part crossover, which I think crossed over into Green Arrow, Green Lantern, Batman, possibly even Detective, and maybe even Batgirl, if I'm remembering correctly.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, but those were some of my favorites at the time. And again, like that's when DC was really whole hog on Legacy, and Green Lantern Rebirth was a step backwards for Legacy. Which they've corrected in some ways, and sure, Kyle's still around, and obviously, we still have Guy Gardner, and we still have John Stewart, and John Stewart became the most prevalent Green Lantern to many people.
Oh yeah,
because
for a long time.
Yeah, exactly, because of the animated series. So it's just interesting that they had to go back on their laurels and get Hal back in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
And I felt the same way when Barry came back. I'm like, well, why? Wally's perfectly capable,
Exactly.
perfectly done.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with that. And I mean, I have not yet read the Wally West miniseries, which is supposed to be so important right now in the DC universe. But I'll have to get my hands on that and make that happen so I can figure out exactly what's happening with Wally now. But
I did read it. It's very interesting. I wouldn't say it's the best thing in the world to read, but it can be important to what's going on if they continue with what they did at the end.
Got it. Yeah, that's Flash Forward.
But it's a fun
right?
story to read.
Yeah, Flash Forward is the name of it, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Okay, got it. Yeah, which I always get confused in my head because there was a book series and a TV series back in the 2000s called Flash Forward.
Correct. Which was canceled before we got any further. It was very Lost-ish.
Yes.
In its cliffhangers.
Yep. John Cho was in that series.
Yes, he was.
Yep. He was really good, but what are you going to do?
I just watched, speaking of John Cho, I just watched, and I haven't watched this in probably 10 or 15 years, a good chunk of American Pie.
Ah.
I completely forgot he was in there in the background as a high school student.
I completely forgot until you just mentioned it now.
Especially in the one scene where they're at like a music competition, and he's in the background singing and doing the choreography as the two of the main characters are up in the forefront of the stage singing. It just tripped me up because I hadn't seen it in so long. I completely forgot.
Yeah, it's interesting. Sometimes you forget where actors that we know started out.
Yeah.
Like whether they were background actors or whether they, were roles that just, completely got underappreciated, and now they're much higher up on the Hollywood echelon as time goes forward.
Yep.
Yeah. What was it? I think Dana Carvey and I forget who else were waiters in in an Eddie Murphy movie. I don't think it was Coming to America. I think it might have been
Trading Places,
I think it was Trading Places, actually. Now that I think about it, yeah, where I was very surprised when they showed up, and then they're way bigger than they were. So
yeah,
yep, go figure on that one. And in other news, trivia. But I've run a little longer for once. Air harp out the wazoo.
Yeah, thank you for that, for the extended clip there. It gave me a chance to practice my air glockenspiel.
My pleasure, sir, as always. Time once again for Muddle the Murd here on Comic Geek Speak. And Murd is here to tell you more.
Okay, yes. Muddle the Murd is our podcast comics trivia challenge. And the challenge is for you, the listener, to ask me, Adam the Murd Murdo, 3 comic book trivia questions that I cannot answer. You must email these questions to comicgeekspeak@gmail.com. The 3 questions you submit must break down as to 1 DC Comics question, 1 Marvel, and 1 about the publications of some other publisher. And also, chronologically, it must be 1 question about comics from before 1970, 1 about comics published between 1970 and 2000 inclusive, and 1 about comics published post-2000. Send in 3 questions meeting those stated guidelines, and if I cannot answer any one of them correctly, you will have won a prize, which I will mail to you at my own expense.
Excellent. And what is that prize today?
Well, we've just about come to the end of the supply of original art that our mysterious benefactor gave us. I got off easy last time. Contestant Scott Honig was sent a nice compact trading card, which I mailed out to him, and in New York, and he was very happy to have won, and I was very happy to do that for him. But now we're back to full-sized artboard. The prize that tonight's contestant will be competing for is actually kind of like 2 prizes in 1. Because the sheet of art paper at which I'm looking has got 1 image on one side. It's a pen and ink sketch by Joel Jones.
Oh, wow.
Of the title character from the Oni Press series Polly and the Pirates. And if that's not your cup of tea, just flip it over and you get this nifty little pencil sketch of the main character of Blacksad.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Oh.
Wow. Two prizes in 1.
Hey. You beat me to it, Ian.
Excellent. And this particular Muddled the Murd comes all the way from Sweden.
Okay, so we're talking international postage here.
Yes, we are. So
of course.
Let's see if we can get this out of the way and ensure that you don't have to pay international postage. Let's see.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
The name I apologize in advance because I am probably going to mangle this. But however, I am very glad you are a longtime listener from Sweden, Mr. Ola Hjalmarsson. And I know I mispronounced that. I apologize, Ola, because I am only so good on my Swedish pronunciations, and by good I mean not so good. But he does indeed say he's a longtime listener from Sweden. I have always enjoyed this segment, so I thought it was time to make a contribution myself. Hopefully I will succeed at muddling the Murd, or at least make you chuckle. And we begin with first question, DC pre-1970. In Adventure Comics, number 260, we see the first appearance of Bizarro Mixelplick, or as he is called, Quipselzim. He is sent back to the 5th dimension by saying his name forward. That is Quipselzim. Since Bizarro number 1 is not able to get him to do that, he instead arrests him, which turns out to be extremely easy. As Bizarro Lois explains, the real Mr. Mixelplick would use tricks to avoid arrest, but Quipselzim, his direct opposite, am too good to resist law. To which Quipselzim replies, 3 cheers for law, hooray, hooray, hooray. He does not get away with a short sentence, though. My question is, Why do they make his sentence short?
Oh, yes. And I must have read this story.
Oh, yeah.
Because I've got that Tales of the Bizarro World trade. Ah, boy. Why do they make his sentence short?
Yep.
They give him time off for bad behavior.
Ooh, that's close. I may have to have Shane be the judge on this one. The answer is, since he is guilty, this is Bizarro World after all. Shane, what do you think? Close enough?
I don't know.
All right. Okay. The I don't know is enough of a sign that we're gonna have to try again here, sir.
Okay, that's fine. I mean,
Yeah, you came
I've got
really
no excuse
close,
for being
though.
less than letter perfect on a Bizarro World question, after all.
That false. Okay, moving on. Second question, independent 1970 to 2000. In this story, this monster in Elf Thing #1 from Eclipse Comics, we meet Swamp Thing-style Dr. Bruce Thing as he is being attacked in a secret lab by Aim Thing, with Aim Thing failing to shut the door down and getting the nickname Bad Aim Thing, boring acronym decoder, and ignorant misanthrope. He instead breaks the door down, and in the resulting melee, Dr. Bruce Thing is splashed with his cellular regeneration solution formula, turning him into an elf. After confronting his sculptress girlfriend Alicia Thing, he sets off from the swamp as an outcast. Wow, this is like Fantastic Four, Swamp Thing, everything. Oh my God.
Everything, exactly.
Exactly. On his way, he encounters Cotter Pillow, an elf sitting on a big mushroom smoking a pipe, who takes him to his hult. My question is, what is going on at the hult when they get there?
Holt.
Yeah.
Can you spell that?
Holt.
Holt.
Yeah. I'm assuming he means hut, because that sounds about right.
Yeah, it might not be an exact translation.
Yeah.
What is going on at the Holt? Boy.
The definition of Holt is a small woods, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep,
Thank you, Merriam-Webster.
That's a new one on me.
Yep.
Yeah, a copse or a stand. The English word wold is not too far from that. So maybe they're cognates. Boy, yeah, I think I actually knew that Elf Thing existed, but I've certainly never read it. So I don't know what's going on at Cotter Pillow's Holt. I'm assuming, though, that somebody is smoking something.
The correct answer, chances are somebody was, but a non-explicit elf orgy.
Oh, okay. It was pretty close to the top of my list of guesses, but
Yeah, there you go.
not quite good enough.
Yep. And we are down to our third question. Marvel post-2000. In Avengers The Initiative, good series, they had the opportunity to collect super beings from every corner of America. It was a 50-state initiative, some of which hadn't seen a spotlight much. A somewhat missed opportunity, in my opinion, but I was glad to see Slapstick, as I'm sure we all are.
I completely agree, Ola.
Yes. In issue number 10, we see Slapstick pulling out, among other things, a sword, a shield, a helmet, an axe, a mallet, a chainsaw, bowling balls and bowling pin, dynamite, 3 rubber chickens, a trombone, a frog, and apparently even a pineapple from his infinite pockets while getting the item he was looking for. My question is, what was the plot important item he was looking for?
Okay. All right. And this... There we go. This is A-okay. This... Yeah, I mean, if the question were going to be, can you name 2 of the 3 random things that he was grabbing out of hammer space, we might have discounted this question as being a little too esoteric. But since it is the final plot important item that I'm being asked to name here, then the question remains legitimate. So you're on solid ice here, Ola.
Excellent.
And of course, I'm not going to be able to think of the answer. Plot important item.
Very good questions all around from Ola.
Yep, and okay, I'm going to say a key.
Ooh. Fortunately, no. The correct answer is his New Warriors communicator.
Right, because he was dating back to, I think, Evan Skolnick's period. He was a reserve member of that group.
Yep.
All right. So, well, Ola, you did indeed elicit a few chuckles with these questions of yours. And you've also elicited a handsome prize and a few tears from me as I slept to the post office to shell out international and intercontinental postage for a rather large parcel.
Oh, boy. All right. Well, hey, fair and square, and Ola, very much thank you for listening as long as you have. 100%.
Yep. It's always nice to know that we've still got listeners in other parts of the world. And then thank you also, Ola, for including your mailing address.
Yes.
So I'll know exactly where to send this prize in the days to come. And you can expect it over there just as soon as the International Post can get it there.
Most definitely, yep. And just to add on to the rules from the Muddled the Murd submissions and what have you, Ola did indeed do this, so there's no problems here with Ola, but make sure they have to be comics. That's number one. And they have to happen inside of the comic itself, which is important.
Yes, it needs to be something that is significant to the plot.
Yes.
Which is why Ola's last question about the stuff that Slapstick was producing was allowable, because he asked not for one of the random things that Slapstick pulled out, but for the plot important item he was looking for.
Exactly. Yes, and I did have fun reading all the other items.
Yes. Don't ask for the color of the wallpaper in a certain panel of Watchmen number 3. Don't ask for like a random number or character that appears on a computer screen in the background or something. But it needs to be something that's at least somewhat significant to the plot or to a character's history, etc.
Yeah. What was the exact hue of Superman's pants in issue number 45? Like, no, it's not going to happen.
Blue.
Yes, which number cyan was used?
Outstanding. All right, Shane, you got anything else you want to bring up? Anything else you read?
No. I was reading the X-Men stuff. I'm still powering through on my reread of Starman. I'm into, and I can never pronounce this right, the Grand Guignol? Guignol. I think I'm on part 4 or 5 of it now, so I'm getting pretty close to the end of that story and then the final arc. So I'll be done that in short order, and that'll be, I think, my 3rd read-through of that series in my lifetime.
Nice. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to read anything since the last time we did a comic talk. I have a bunch of things queued up that I'm ready to read, including Stars and Stripe, as those are
nice.
All those are available on DC Universe, and I'm looking forward to reading at least try to bang out at least 5 or 10 issues by the next time we talk. Same cool. With I've never read Morrison's Doom Patrol.
I have some of it. I don't think I made it through the whole thing. Not because it's bad, I just didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first issue of Crawling from the Wreckage, but that's it.
Yeah, all of that is also on the DC Universe app. It's not included in the Vertigo stuff they didn't include, since I guess because it was DC first before it became anything else. So all of that Morrison stuff is on the app. So I will be probably delving into that as well, and hopefully I won't need psychotropic drugs in order to get through it, but we'll see. The other thing that I'm definitely reading soon, because I wouldn't be me if I didn't bring up a manga, there is a manga that is available as part of Comixology Unlimited that's also available to all Prime members. So if you have Amazon Prime, you can read these for free.
I do.
Excellent. All you got to do is just download the Kindle app and click read for free on your account, and you can do it. It's called Drops of God. And what's awesome about this this series, it was released in English for a short time. I think they got through maybe 5 volumes before it dried up back in 2011. Pun 100% intended there. I remember actually going to the big premiere for this, where they actually had a formal wine tasting at a wine shop in Manhattan to premiere the book. Vertical Publishing were the guys behind it at the time. And now Comixology picked it up, and they're going to go ahead and continue it past that 5th volume. And pretty much all of it is available now on Comixology as part of Comixology Unlimited and part of Prime Reading. And it's about Yutaka Kanzaki, who's a wine critic whose reviews have enough clout to move the industry worldwide. And he has recently died, leaving behind a wine collection worth over 2 billion yen. And only the one who can name his favorite bottles plus vintages will inherit this dream of a cellar. Such a cool concept. And it's somewhat old in Japan. It's just it didn't get translated here in America for a while, and now it's all available. And I cannot wait to sink into this, and I know I'm going to do it with my favorite bottle of red that I can find, because it's that much fun, and I recommend it to anybody who's into food manga or anybody who's just looking for something a little bit different. So I recommend Drops of God for anybody, pretty much. And Shane, you can check it out.
Yeah.
It reads backwards. It reads backwards like most manga, but that's the one thing you got to get used to. That's about it.
I don't mind. I kind of got used to that with Monster and Death Note, and I have a Star Blazers and a Star Wars manga that reads backwards.
Nice. Very nice. All right, and other than that, gentlemen, have we shot our bolt?
I believe so.
Okay.
Oh, I feel very bolt shot, Ian. No,
in more ways than one.
Let us please call it a night.
Well, I will mention once more, and this is not just because Murd has to ship something internationally, but I would like to thank anyone who has been donating to the show over the past couple of months. We 100% appreciate it.
Yes, 150%, because donations are much appreciated anytime. But when you can dig deep enough to give some money to a comics podcast during a pandemic, it's definitely appreciated by us.
I 100% agree with that 100%, Murd. And there have been donations recently that have been very, very generous, and I appreciate that 100%. comicgeekspeak.com/donate-php. If you want to be one of those donators, you can do a one-time donation or monthly or of any sort that you'd like. But one-time donation is more than enough, just if you can. And if you can't, do not, because we do not want you spending any more money than you have to in this day and age. So thank you very much for that. And other than that, we are ready to roll. So, Shane, let's do this.
Okay. Visit us at comicgeekspeak.com to send us an email. The address is comicgeekspeak@gmail.com. To leave a voicemail, the number is 267-702-6642. Stop by thecomicforums.vanillacommunity.com. Let us know what you think of Stargirl and all the other topics we covered in our Comic Talk episode. Thank you for contributing to the episode. As Ian and Adam have already said, we do really appreciate it. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, check out our Facebook supergroup as well. And as always, we are uniting the world's mightiest heroes, one listener at a time.
You got it on Wednesday, and you was psyched about it, going to the volume up. These guys will talk about it, everything that geeks love. From cakes to laser beams, opinions like the seasons on everything you read. And comics, movies, games, toys, artists, come. Comic Geek Speak, comic Geek Speak, comic Geek Speak, comic Geek Speak, comic Geek. Uniting the world's mightiest heroes. This is